Stuff. So I have a recipe here for focaccia, which is a really wonderful bread. It's an easy bread to make. It's really forgiving. Every time I make it, it's just a little bit different. But don't be scared of bread, right? A lot of people are scared of bread. I don't know why. Flour and water and salt and yeast. That's it. So we're gonna make my focaccia. Let's make the dough. For focaccia, I got 2 cups of bread flour and 2 cups of all-purpose flour. The reason why I have 2 different kinds is I want my focaccia to be chewy, but I don't want it to be chewy like a baguette. It should be a little bit more tender than that. There is 4 cups of flour. All right, I got a tablespoon of salt. Don't mix the aluminum in there. Here's a tablespoon of sugar. Yeast is fascinating. Instant yeast, you can take it and put it right into your recipe. Active yeast, you have to bloom it in water first and kind of get it going. Yeast is amazing. It is a little creature and it eats sugar and then it farts carbon dioxide, and every little yeast fart makes a little bubble in your bread dough, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So like when you are like eating a pizza and it has a huge bubble on the back of it, it's a yeast fart. But they're delicious farts. This recipe calls for 2 cups of water. I have 2.5 because every time I make bread, I kind of eyeball it. Once you've been doing it a while, you can kind of see it. You're like, when you see the dough, I know what that dough is gonna look like after it's baked. If I want it to be a little wetter, be a little looser, maybe I'm gonna do that. If I want it to be a little drier and a little tighter for like a sandwich, maybe I'll do that. I'm gonna start this nice and slow, and I'm gonna add the 2 cups. I'm gonna hold back about 1/2 cup, and now we're just gonna watch it. All right, this looks a skosh dry, so I'm gonna add a little bit more water. All right, this looks good, but I wanna make sure that there's no flour on the very bottom of the bowl. So what I'm gonna do is just turn this off, scrape this down, and then I'm just gonna pick it up. No flour. That's good. Bread, you need to knead it for a while. It's got to go for, I don't know, this is probably going to go like 8 minutes or so. Bread needs to, it needs to knead. Bread needs to knead. And it needs to knead because you're creating a structure. I could watch this all day. Okay, I think it's ready. I got a box. I'm gonna put a little oil in it. We could let this rise at room temperature, let it puff up, and bake it in a couple hours. But I wanna put this in the refrigerator and let it ferment overnight. It's a cool trick. I'm gonna take a piece of plastic and lay it on top. Then I'm gonna take a longer piece of plastic and you stretch. Oh, stretch. And then wrap it around really tight. Because if this thing goes over the edge and explodes in my fridge, my wife will have a conversation with me. Okay, so now that is nice and tight. Then I'll put the lid on. This is gonna ferment for 24 hours. It's gonna give us really good flavor, beautiful crust on the outside. You'll see, but we're gonna put this in the fridge, and then tomorrow, we're baking bread. It's tomorrow. Let's see how the bread's doing. Look, remember it was like this big. Now it's this big. Look at all of our little captured farts. One of my favorite things about putting bread in the fridge overnight is the smell in the morning. It's like a yeast, like it's like a yeasty Dutch oven. So you get the covers like this, right? And you go. But it really smells great. So what I'm gonna do, take a little flour and sprinkle it on top and then start pulling this away from the edge here. There you can really see this dough structure. This is the web, and each one of these is where the yeast has been growing. So here's what I'm gonna do. A little bit of flour, so my hands don't stick to it too much. I'm gonna give it a little bit of structure here. And just roll it into a big ball. So what I'm doing there is I'm sort of pulling the top down and around and underneath and sort of creating some tension on the surface. This will eventually flatten out and fill this whole pan. But right now we still want to build a structure so when this thing bakes, it looks right when you cut it open. This is the part where I go a little overboard. I like to put a lot of oil in the bottom of the pan. The bottom of the bread gets a little oily, but it gets really crispy because it actually deep fries in the oven. Good amount of oil down there. Okay, and then cornmeal. Now, cornmeal, when you're baking it in a pan like this, you don't really need to put the cornmeal in there. I just like the texture when it's finished. Now this guy is gonna go right in the middle and press him down a little bit, but he is gonna fill this up just fine. I think we're gonna have a really good loaf of bread because you can see all these little bubbles here. This is gonna be tasty. All right, now to let it rest, I'm gonna put a little more oil on top. Not a lot, just enough to keep this moist. All right, so this is nice and oily, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some plastic on here. I like to cover it really loosely with the plastic. When it's time to take the plastic off, it just peels off like a dream and it doesn't mess with the bread itself. All right, now this is gonna go somewhere warm, maybe even in the sun if the sun gets over here for, I don't know, probably like 2.5 hours. Because remember, it's really cold right now. So it's still rising very, very slowly. Once it warms up, then it's gonna really start moving, but it's probably gonna be a couple hours. So I'll see you in a couple hours. Okay, focaccia is, look how big and beautiful and bubbly and amazing. So you see that plastic just comes right off. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, I got a little basil oil, which is just pureed basil and oil. And now a little Parmesan, a little bit of salt. Okay, and now you make the focaccia claw, the claw. And then you this fool is going into the oven at 350 degrees until it's done. Look at that. Deep fried. We're gonna let this guy cool before we eat it. Bread really is better after it cools. The baking process doesn't stop when you pull it out of the oven. You do wanna let it cool down. And then we're gonna eat it. Okay, moment of truth. So you see it's gotten a lot softer. Ooh, it smells so oily and cheesy. Look at that huge bubble. That looks great. It's so crispy on the bottom. A little basil-y, but it's soft. It's got a ton of body. It's chewy. This is a chewy bread. You don't even need to dunk this. This is good. Bread isn't scary. Good luck. Yeah, yeast farts. Who knew? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed hanging with me today, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you won't miss any of the fun videos we have coming your way. See you soon.